you. I've got two special guests here. Here's my first one, right here, in a little box. And we're going to talk all about this thing here. And to talk about that, I have a very special guest, Mr. Shawn Tubbs. Welcome, Shawn.
Hey, Dave. How's it going?
Good. Can you give me your elevator pitch? Who is Shawn Tubbs? What do you do?
Well, I mean, I've been playing guitar for a long time. I did a lot of guitar playing. I would say the majority of like all the session playing and things like that kind of kicked in out of high school. Would have been in like, the late, I graduated in '86, and basically right out of high school, I went into doing sessions. And a lot of it was a lot of CCM kind of stuff, and a lot of custom stuff. And you guys know how all that works. The more people you meet, the more sessions you do, the more, work you do. And long story short, I basically lived in California for 23 years, moved there in 78, 79, something like that. And then, ended up moving to Nashville because of the Carrie Underwood gig. I was offered that gig.
Yeah.
And I'm probably screwing up all the math, but I did that gig for about 12, 13 years. I stopped after the Storyteller tour. And in the midst of that, I was taking sessions around Nashville and just kind of doing the usual session things, lots of sessions here in my studio. And, I still get sessions from LA where guys just remote send me stuff. So, I mean, I'm trying to like condense it into, I've pretty much been doing guitar as a pro for a minute.
Right. No, I know how it goes. There are so many moments in your life as a musician that it's hard to condense in a couple minutes, but I get it, but that's great. And then at some point came the gear thing. I mean, you're the session guy and all that, but some of our viewers might know you for the YouTube review stuff, or your activities on YouTube for reviews and gear and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was well, that's funny because that was Chris Van Tessel of Rocket Pedals is the guy that got me to start doing that. Okay. He was always just kind of prodding me, especially when I was off between tours with Carrie. He was always like, "Man, you should do demo videos. I think you'd be really good at it." Yeah. And that's kind of where I started. And I do really enjoy it. It's, because I get to just play what I want to play, discover new products that are cool, and then, throw it out there and see, what people think, what do they dig? What do they not dig? There's so much cool stuff out there, and it's inspiring. So I've been doing, I guess in earnest now for the last probably 5 or 6 years. Okay. The YouTube thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And then at what point did you connect with the guys at Revv, with Derek and all that? When did you connect?
That was, let me see if I can get the timeline right. That's been a few years ago now, almost 4 years. Derek reached out to me to demo product. Okay. We met in Nashville. And that's how it started. He was like, "Hey, would you be down for demoing some product?" And then things just kind of rolled on after that. And I continued a relationship with them. I got along with them really well. And it just kind of morphed into eventually, doing a signature pedal with them, and also helping them out with products like, the D20. I'm kind of more instrumental in product development with them now. And it's been great. They're really a great company to be a part of.
They're awesome. And that brings us to this guy right here, the Tilt, this pedal.
Yes.
The Overdrive. So this came out, was it like 2 months ago? Or it's pretty recent, like a month or two ago?
Yeah. Actually, I think it's only been out since like the 18th or so of May.
Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. Because I got mine a couple months ago, and I was kind of waiting. I remember there was like a secret, couldn't show it.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. For those of you who don't know, and a lot of you, I fake it, but I'm not a gear guy. I love playing through good gear, like everyone. But whenever I have to dial tone, I just get paralyzed with options, and is this better than that? And I know it's part of the process, but I end up not really enjoying it. And so in the end, I'm embarrassed to say, but there's a lot of vocabulary that guitar players should know that I'm really clueless. So this is kind of my coming out video. I really, like, you'd be shocked at how little I know. I mean, I know what a distortion is, I know what an overdrive is, delay, stuff like that. But when I receive a pedal, typically, I mean, I'm super excited. I plug it in and I turn all the dials here and there, and it sounds cool, but I end up not making the most of that piece of gear because I don't know what I'm doing. And I know there's some experimentation, but what I would love is, first of all, to just kind of ask you questions about this, and then maybe we can kind of play with it a little bit together, and I can ask you questions. Maybe you can guide me through some settings or whatever. But my first question is I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's a lot of overdrive pedals out there, a lot of distortions and all that stuff. And I'm curious, why this new one? I mean, it sounds great, but is there a story behind the creation of the Tilt?
Well, yeah, I mean, having worked with Revv quite a bit, that was kind of a lot of the things that Derek and I, and actually Dan Trudeau, the head, chief designer, would chat about is the Revv products, were mainly kind of known as more of kind of a metal brand. But as I was demoing a lot of the products, I was kind of relating to them. It's like, hey, I know this amp's great for metal, but it's really, really good for other stuff, like me being more of a Nashville style to rock, maybe kind of blues, maybe some outside style player. These amps are capable of more than just doing metal. But at the same time, it was like, well, I love the G3. It sounds massive, but that's not really my thing. And same with even the, like I was more drawn towards the G2, which was more like the green channel of the big amps. It was, less gain. G4 sounded massive, not quite my thing. So that's how it kind of was, Dan basically saying, well, what is your sound? Like, what's the sound in your head? And that's really what happened. And as I was telling him, well, it's really more based on like single channel tube amps, from low wattage to high wattage, non-master volume tube amps. That conversation kind of morphed into, well, what if I could build something like that, in a box for you? Would you be down? In a nutshell is what happened. And that's what really happened with the Tilt. I mean, I never set out to like, I'm going to come out with something that's never been done, this revolutionary thing. It's like, no, it's just, I have a sound in my head that's based on an amalgamation of so many different things. Can we shove that into one box? So that was the overdrive side of it. The boost side of it was me knowing that I would like to have a clean boost that could hit the drive side of the pedal, but I already knew what I didn't like about like single knob boosts. Usually on a single knob boost, what happens is, you start cranking the boost up, and it's great because you can drive an amp or a pedal that's on the other side of it, but then you get these anomalies. Too much low end, it gets woolly, or the top end gets really strident, or things start happening. And that's what I knew I would want to fix. So I was immediately after Dan, going, hey, we got to do a Tilt style EQ, and I also want to be able to have a tight switch. So I mean, that's really what it was about. It's like, it's a medium gain pedal that's, like I said, based on just the sound that's in my head, and also feel is a big part of it. It's not an amp in a box. I didn't want that. But at the same time, I did want it to like respond like an amp.
Okay, so maybe walk me through this. Like, I'm getting this new thing, a new pedal. I want to test it. First of all, what's your strategy? Do you plug that piece of gear in something dry, clean tone? What do you do?
Well, it's really to each his own. I mean, I prefer, like, I didn't like you guys that are familiar with my demo channel. I tend to gravitate towards plugging into something that's really, really clean to demo the product. My preference is to plug into something that's got a little like edge of breakup. But in this case, for the most part, if it sounds good through a really clean amp, it's just going to be better through something that's got a little bit of grit or edge of breakup. So, but yeah, my go-to, when I discover products to demo, or if it's something that I've just found that I just want to try out, if it's an overdrive, distortion, whatever, I always go into a super clean amp.
Okay.
Because that's just the deadly truth,
Yeah. All right. So some people are going to hate me. Some people are going to be saying, oh, that's fine. But I'm using an Axe-Fx here. I wanted to use the D20, but was missing a cable and all that. But anyways, I think a lot of people might use something like the Fractal or something like that. So this is my reference tone. And I've got some reverb and delay stuff. It's clean-ish.
Yeah.
But it kind of breaks up a little bit. Would you turn off the wetness in there?
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, I guess there's not so much there that it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't hear anything but that. Okay. So no, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So so that's a tone I enjoy playing through here, kind of cleanish. And let's just go for it. Do you usually do everything at 12 o'clock when you start something?
Yeah, I would say with the way that tone, you can do everything at 12, but just turn, and I'll explain why, but turn the bass down, about right there is fine.
Okay.
And then, you see what that sounds like.
I like this sound, but I don't know how it translates through, the internet and stuff.
So what I'm hearing right away, Dave, is with this setup, you can turn the bass up, like put the bass back to noon.
Okay.
Yeah, you can turn, if you want, turn the gain up a little bit. Okay, now turn the bass down just a bit, like down to like half where you had it.
It feels good, but people are maybe not going to feel that, but it feels good.
So, to your ears, like, do you like brighter tones than that, or do you like darker tones, or?
I wouldn't go darker, but to me, it sounds like a good sweet spot. If anything, I would try going a little brighter, but not that much.
Try turning the bass down just a little bit more.
Okay. That makes a difference from what I'm playing.
Yeah, see, that sounds to me, I mean, you can still turn up the treble, but the way the pedal's designed is, that bass is not so much a bass frequency as it is a kind of a low mid. So sometimes if you bring that back, it'll bring out the more kind of focused mids without needing to turn up treble.
Yeah.
It'll just get a little bit clearer. You can, you could turn the treble up a little bit if you'd like. But as a rule, when I'm dialing people in on the pedal, especially like with your touch and the way you're playing into it, I tend to lean towards, cut the bass first. And then if you still want it to be a little brighter, then you can bump the treble,
Yeah. Is that something that you would typically do if you wanted to brighten things up, just turn the bass down as opposed to bring the treble up? Or is it just depending on the piece of gear you're using?
Well, it's really personal preference. For me, that's habit, because being a session player, usually what I'll do if I'm trying to make room in a track is I'll take away low fundamentals first before I start trying to add top end. So it is kind of habit for me. But there's no set rule to that, because I've seen guys dial that pedal where the treble and bass are literally following each other. That's how they're dialing it, and it sounds great. So there's no set rule. to like turn the pedal back off and let me hear.
This activated both. This is a question I had too for you, but
yeah, that sounds really cool. The only thing I was going to say is maybe turn the volume up just a little bit on it. Yeah.
Sounds good to me. I like it. So I guess there's a certain, I don't know if it's a pressure thing or the way that I pressed it, but every once in a while, when I'll activate the drive, it activates the boost too.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So let's do something really quick on the boost side. Can you turn that tilt EQ more to the right, almost to like 3 o'clock? There you go. And then on the tight switch, put it in the down position.
Okay.
There you go. And turn the boost down to like 9 o'clock-ish. There you go. I'm just kind of getting you dialed in on to kick the boost in. Now, the reason that happens is the pedal's programmed. If you hold the drive button down, it'll turn on both sides.
So if I turn it down?
Yeah, so now hold it down. You have to hold it for 3 seconds.
Okay.
So, yeah, so hit it again and hold it.
Got it. Okay.
There you go. And hold it again, it'll shut both sides off. There you go.
Okay.
That's why that happens. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I knew some guys were going to want to just use it that way.
Yeah.
So we programmed it to do that. Plus, you can make it so if it's in a rack drawer, you can program it so one side's on at power up, both sides are on at power up, or the other side. Yeah. Okay, so that's why that's happening.
Got it. So yeah, a quick press is just one, and then hard press. Got it. Yep. Okay. Cool.
Yep.
Nice. Okay. So yeah, tell me about the boost. Would you set that boost just alone first, or?
You could, but what I would do is start with the drive side.
Okay.
And we'll dial the boost as just kind of a more. So go ahead and play the drive first. Cool. Now just hit the boost and let's see what that does.
I heard a very subtle difference, not much.
Right. Yeah. So right now that's how I have it set up, is just to be kind of more. I didn't want the boost side to be a totally transparent boost, but at the same time, you can, the way I had you dial it makes it so it is somewhat transparent. So what I would do is just turn up the boost to like 12 o'clock.
Yeah, okay, so this is where my lack of vocabulary is going to come in, but this is my best description of what I'm hearing. It's not just a volume thing, but I'm hearing, I want to say harmonics or frequency, something a little bit more on the top, but I don't know, I'm using the wrong terms here, but I'm hearing something different when I increased that. It was not just a volume thing. I was about here. I'm hearing like maybe mids-ish coming up a little bit. It's hard to describe. So how would you describe that? What's happening?
No, well, that's exactly what's happening, because that's a 12 dB boost. So as you keep adding more boost, you're going to get different harmonic things happening. It's going to be more complex. You're sometimes going to hear more top end. So it depends on the amp you're playing through too. Sometimes it'll present with more mids, but that's where the tilt EQ, like if you're turning that up and you feel like, maybe it's getting a little too woolly, or maybe it's getting too bright. So woolly being dark or boomy, you can adjust the tilt accordingly. So as you turn it to the right, it's going to get darker. As you turn it to the left, it'll get a little bit brighter. So if you're bringing in the boost and maybe it's getting too thick, then you could turn the tilt EQ to the left. It's going to add top end and take away low.
Oh, I see. Okay. So when you said brighter, darker, you were talking about the tilt EQ?
Yes. Yeah.
Level, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Because what happens with the boost is like I said, those types of anomalies are going to happen as you crank up the boost. Sometimes it's going to create more low end. A lot of times it creates harmonics in the top end that may not be as desirable. So you can turn the tilt EQ to the right, and it'll take some of that out.
Okay.
And the opposite, if it gets a little too dark, you could turn the tilt EQ to the left, and it'll take some of that out. And then of course that tight switch is there to help as well, because what could happen is you could get that tilt EQ where you want it, so your top end is perfect, but now it's like, oh man, it's a little boomy. But the only way to make that go away is to start turning the tilt to the left, and my top end's going to change. Then you can use that tight switch to cut lows only.
Okay. So is that like the tilt EQ, is that kind of what solved the problem that you had with other boosts missing? Absolutely. That? Okay. That makes sense.
Absolutely. That's why I wanted that. And I really like a tilt style EQ, because it does kind of bring out those really cool kind of accidental harmonics. To me, they're just, I mean, I guess, I've seen guys that they use graphics, or they'll have, even a bass mid treb or bright cut, and all that stuff is fine. But for me, there's just something about a tilt style EQ. It's just harmonically always sounds really cool to me.
Yeah. So, okay. Again, I'm going to embarrass myself. When you say tilt style EQ, is that a known thing? Before the tilt came, that's the actual word, a tilt EQ, or is that just, are you referring to this pedal?
No, the tilt style EQ is basically, if you think of it as like a teeter-totter, it's basically you're changing an EQ based on a center axis. Okay. So if you go this way, if this is the lows, if you go this way, then the lows come up, highs come down. Yeah. Other way would be the opposite of that. But if you look at it that way, that's why it's called a tilt style. But that terminology has been around for a long time.
And so this switch, the tight switch, would kind of like maybe bring up some of the stuff that you're losing, or tweak a little bit because of the angle or your tilt. It would fix maybe the low end or something like that, right?
Or if you were wanting a more kind of cutting tone, and the tilt, you were putting the tilt to the left, so it's cutting low end, but you wanted some of that low end to come back, then you would put that tight switch in the center, the normal setting, and your lows would come back. Or if you only want to cut a little bit of lows, then you put it in the half setting. So it just allows you to really custom tailor the low end as you're finding that tilt frequency that you really dig. It allows you to do that without messing with your whole tone stack, to just address one issue.
That makes sense. Can we come up with a real use case to kind of demonstrate that? I don't know if it'll come through, but just to kind of see the tightness of the thing. So if I've got my boost on, kind of on a brighter setting with the tilt here, and correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm saying anything that's not right, tell me, okay?
Oh no, you can't say anything wrong, David.
No, but like my terminology is really messed up. I told you I don't know anything about gear. I'm just a noob who's been playing for 35 years. But so I'm kind of on the brighter side of the boost, and this is on the full setting here.
Yeah, so that's going to be the most cut. So if you put that in the center, like just hold out like an A chord. Like an open center.
What's that?
And then while that chord's holding out, just throw it to the center.
Okay.
And you'll hear it.
I do. It's subtle, but I can hear it through these speakers. And then half. I don't hear it so much with the half. A little bit.
Yeah.
But here I really do hear it with full and.
Yeah, the half setting was meant to be more obviously subtle. In that full setting, what it also allows for too is it brings out mids, because as you cut lows, you're not necessarily boosting mids, but you're making mids more apparent, and that's my world.
Yeah.
I have to at least have access to that kind of natural mid without being forced to like boost mids.
I
like mids to be supernatural. That's why there's not a mid control on the pedal. I would rather have the mids just be kind of right, and then you do things that will bring out mids naturally, like cutting lows, or even in the way the tilt EQ works, you can bring out mids that way. And once again, it just, to me, sounds a little more harmonically complex.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm curious to hear it with a darker boost. I'll leave it on the normal setting. Here's the boost. Yeah, I hear the harmonics coming in. I kind of like the darker side a little bit. It's you used the word earlier. I can't remember what it was, but it was almost like it reminded me of like those harmonics that are not like surprise harmonics coming in. Or do you remember the word you used?
Well, it really is just kind of these anomalies.
That's it. Yeah, anomalies. Yeah. Yes, I love that. It's because it's not too much. It's still, you can still control it, but it's there to give it this organic type of sound, which is cool.
Right. Well, that's what those old single channel tube amps. That's what I loved about them, is they were just always so complex sounding. You know, and that's what I was going for with this. And what you're liking right now is actually, David, is you turn that thing, when you were turning it to the left, it's actually getting brighter. But what was happening too is you had put the that tight switch in the normal setting, so it allows way more lows to come through, and especially where the boost is set right now. So that's the thing. It's like if you want to try it, like shut the drive side off, and just mess around with hitting the fractal harder, like seeing what it does, just driving the fractal.
Try it without. Yeah. It's almost like the feel that I would get with a compressor. Which doesn't make sense, but that's the feeling I get with it. I like it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Just if you just want to use that side of it to hit the front end of something, and every amp's going to be different. Some amps are going to sag or compress a little bit, like that the model in that fractal is doing. Other amps, like my Bella, that amp's less forgiving, so it'll break up, but it'll actually get it'll almost be kind of strident, so I have to dial into that. Whereas if I do it, you guys can't see it, but if I do the same thing through my Friedman Dirty Shirley or my Revv, it'll do something completely different.
Yeah.
But it does, you know, that tilt EQ, you know, that was a big part of it too, is I knew a lot of guys were going to want to drive, you know, as just their single channel, whatever amps, even if it's a high gain channel, like metal players are going to want to use that to drive a channel. They're going to cut lows with it and essentially do what you would do with like a TS9 or something. A lot of metal players like to take those and they bring out mids and cut lows, make things sound tighter. You can do the same thing with the boost side of the tilt without, you know, and the tilt has no clipping on that side. So, you know, you can dial things in that way as well, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. Would you usually place this at the beginning of your chain, maybe a compressor before? Well, actually, no, compressor. Where would you place the compressor? Personally.
I, as a rule, always have a compressor at the front of the chain. In general, I mean, the only thing it would, you know, would kind of cancel that out is when it comes to overdrive pedals, like if it's a fuzz pedal, that's got to be at the very front, period. And compressors, I don't really like them to be post very much. So I generally tend to keep those sooner or earlier in the chain. And then with the tilts, it depends on your rig. Like I would say, yes, put the tilt before that. But if or at the beginning of the chain, compressor, and then probably the tilt.
Yeah.
But if you've got another pedal that you run really low gain, like maybe it's a Greer light speed or something along those lines, I would put that before the tilt and the tilt after, because the tilt sounds great being hit by other pedals that have a little bit of clipping. But it's really to each his own. My rule is always, if it's a medium gain pedal, that needs to be earlier in the chain. If it's a higher gain pedal, put it later in the chain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that's great. My next step is I'm going to try this with a D20. I'll probably do this later this week because I really wanted to do that. I really like the D20, and you said you were instrumental in that too. You were participating what was your role with the D20?
Well, I was just kind of the ears at that point. Dan pretty much had it done. Dan and Derek, really.
Yeah.
And they just kind of threw certain things at me. I would listen to it. Yeah, it sounds great. The one thing that I did is I programmed all or created all the Dyne IRs that come with it on the front.
Yep.
So those are all mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's such a cool amp. It's so portable. I love it.
Yeah, I love mine. I got mine's down here, but it's just a workhorse. I wish that thing was around back when I was touring with Carrie.
Oh man,
it would have been a lifesaver when we couldn't take, because you do these backline gigs and you got to show up and use whatever happens to be there. And 9 times out of 10, it's just a massacred, old Vox AC, or it's a Fender Twin that's just had the daylights beat out of it. Yeah. And you just gotta give it and hope for the best. You show up with a D20, it's like XLR cable, you're on in-ears, you already know how the D20 sounds, you got your IR perfect, no worries, Yeah. I wish that had been around, when I was touring. But yeah, it's a fabulous amp. I could gush all day about that. Those are really good amps.
Yeah, and you make it sound good too. A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Comments. Let's see. All right. Well, I'm going to open it up to the room here if anyone has comments. But
it looks like Derek was here. Derek Eastfellow said sometimes you just got to go out and give her. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Just got to give her, bod.
Yeah, mostly comments. Just good. I just saw the beginning. Hopefully, it's a good one. Here's a secret for lead players: lower the height of the front pick up to half the height of the rear pick. Adds more compression and less sustain to play notes fast, but not sound metal. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. There's no set rules. I mean, that it's kind of whatever works. Like my thing is always, I tend to keep the pickup heights, what I would say standard. In a neck position, I'll keep it a little bit lower. But my big thing is I always just make sure, especially if it's like a 3 pickup guitar, single hum, something like that, or even if it's a 3 single pickup guitar, I always want the bridge pickup wired to a tone control by itself.
Yeah.
That way I can dial everything in the way I would love for a neck position. But then when I throw back to the back, I've got the tone control rolled to where I love it without it being strident in the back position. But that's just one way of doing it. And was it Admiral?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's whatever works for you. And that totally makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. I don't see any other questions. Maybe we were concise and clear. I don't know. Maybe. That's good.
No, that's great.
Yeah. Man, I've really enjoyed this talk. And it sounds to me that I think here's my mistake. When I get a new piece of gear, I turn the buttons too fast before just sitting with the sound and playing, because we know that tone is in your finger, but your fingers, and what it means is that you have a direct impact on whatever gear you're playing through. And I think my problem is that I just haven't given it enough time. I'm just too fast to turn the knobs, but just really sit and try all those little subtle things and see what happens, and just spend more time listening instead of turning the button. I think that's what I'm taking away from our talk.
Well, I mean, the tilts, especially, if you just can't relate to the thing, like any pedal, then that's a bummer. But if you can turn it on and go, okay, that's cool, then at least for me, it's like, okay, well, what else can I drag out of this thing? What else can I discover? And as you mess with that more, a lot of guys think, well, it's a smoother overdrive, and it is, but it can sound super angry depending on how you set up the tone stack. So if you run more volume and less gain, it's a different pedal. Yeah. So there's all kinds of like ways to discover that pedal, especially seeing guys in Nashville, what they do with it. It's so cool. A lot, especially the session guys. They've discovered things that they really love about it within the context of what they do. But the main thing is cats like that, myself, and you, David. It's like if you can turn it on and go, okay, this is cool, then you're good. If you turn it on and just go, oh man, I can't.
And just to be clear, this was
not the right. Yeah, well, that's the thing, but it's probably not right for you.
Yeah,
in rare cases. Have I turned on something and went, oh, that's not a fit, and then pressed through it, But you do have to just be patient, and and you can find your sound, because yes, that pedal is the sound in my head, but it's really important to me that pretty much any guitar player that played nothing like me, didn't play the style I play, could plug into it and be happy playing it.
Yeah,
because it's a sound in my head, of course, but I want anybody to be able to plug into that thing and do what they do, not feel like they have to be a different guitar player to play through that pedal,
Yeah, which is cool. That's what I like about it. Tell me about the artwork. Is that something that you wanted a motorcycle on there, or was it just?
It's cool. Actually, I wanted a truck on it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because the color, I was kind of persnickety even about the color. Once we got the color right, which Derek definitely, I drug that poor guy through the ringer, and he drug the power quarters through the ringer to get that color right. But I was like, man, I do want some sort of graphic on it. And it was originally going to be like a 60s S10 truck.
Okay.
But when we placed it on there, it just didn't look right. We just couldn't place it. And it was actually Derek that was like, well, do you like motorcycles? I was like, yeah, I did cafe racers. Maybe we can get that to work.
Yeah.
And so Dorian, who's one of the graphics guys, or the graphic guy at Revv, he kind of superimposed it on there and let me see it. And I was like, oh yeah, done. Just bring it in, make it a little more ghosty. So you got to look at it for a second before you realize it's a cafe racer. And but that's literally what that was. I wanted some sort of graphic on it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And was it the gray that you had a hard time getting the color right, or the gold?
It was the gray. That color is based on a car color that I like called polymetal gray.
Okay.
So it's kind of bluish gray.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it just took us forever to get it right, but it came out cool. And then it was actually Dorian that suggested the gold. And Dorian was way more persnickety about the gold than me.
Yeah. So the combination works super well. And then the white too. I mean, it's not bold as in like, oh my gosh, that's an eyesore. It's just cool. It looks cool.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I was trying to make it. I just wanted it to look classy, and I could have gone with nothing on there, but I was like, no. But that's just me. I just like some sort of graphic.
Yeah, definitely. When did the conversation start about creating this? How long ago was that?
It was about a year process, really. Okay. From that to basically having something that was ready to go.
And when you approach guys like Revv when you approach them to make a pedal board and you started the conversation, I mean, it helps that you have got a lot of experience with gear, you have the vocabulary and all that. But what is the process? Is it kind of like, well, I want an overdrive and a boost that kind of sounds like this, but not quite, and then they go for it, you try it and you fix it? What's the process?
Yeah, that's really it. And because of COVID and everything, obviously that made things difficult, because there's like 1,500 miles between here and Canada. Yeah. So a lot of it was phone conversations with Dan, and And because Dan doesn't copy products, it wasn't like I could say, well, Dan, just base it on these couple pedals. So, but at the same time, Dan knows amps. He doesn't copy amps, but he knows amps. So I could tell him, hey, I want to cram all these amps into a box. So a Fender high-powered Tweed Twin, 50. But I also love a JTM 45. I think Plexis are killer. I like low-powered Tweeds. How can we get all this into one box? And basically, with that knowledge on the drive side of the pedal, Dan would create just the drive and send it to me. So, I think there were 4 drives total before I settled on the drive side.
Okay.
Back and forth.
Was the boost an easier process, or did it also take some back and forth like that?
It took some back and forth. The upside on the boost is we were getting to that. He did send me examples that I was kind of working through, but the boost happened a little bit quicker because it was on the tail end of COVID when I could actually start heading out to Canada. And I could sit with Dan in real time with the boost and say, hey, do you hear that?
Yeah.
Can we change that? And then there would be like a poof of dust and he would be gone. And then he started smoke and he would come back and, try this. And so that made the process much, much quicker because Dan he's extremely intuitive to sounds. So if you can sit in front of him and play, he like, I noticed he would watch, especially my right hand, very intently because he wants to know, like, okay, well, what's your playing dynamics? What are you trying to capture? And then I could tell him, that's a little strident, or that's, I want it to be more airy, or the low end is too boomy, and I would play it for him. And the second he heard it, he could sort it out. He's super intuitive. And I think the process would have been quicker had I just been able to stay in one room with him from the beginning. But because of the back and forth, it took a little bit longer.
Yeah. And it sounds like you guys started with the overdrive first and then the boost. Is it because the boost just brings out stuff from the overdrive and you wanted to make sure that boost would react to the overdrive you created?
Well, there wasn't any rhyme or reason to which thing we did first. I mean, it was really, the sound in my head was always going to be based on an overdrive. And then for me, the boost side of it was kind of the next thought in the process. So once I knew the drive was happening, it's like, okay, I do want a boost in front of this. So let's start talking about that. And of course, just so everybody knows, the boost solely goes into the overdrive. That's
okay. Yeah, I was missing that part. Okay, that's interesting. That makes sense.
Yeah, because I didn't, and I had to be true to myself. It's like, yes, I could have put a switch on there, which is extra circuitry, but I could have put a switch on there that reversed the order. But it's something I wouldn't personally do for 2 reasons. The first reason is I don't particularly gravitate towards having the boost be after a drive pedal. But at the same time, this is a medium gain pedal. So I wanted the boost to be able to create more saturation into that side of the pedal. Now, if it was a really high gain pedal, I might have been more apt to say, let's put the boost on the other side so that you can just boost the solo without creating more gain. You're literally just boosting the level. And in that case, sculpting the tone post is different than sculpting the tone pre. You get different anomalies that way. I prefer to sculpt the tone into a drive as opposed to after. But a lot of guys, that use higher gain stuff, they want their EQs, and I'm sure these guys can chime in. They'll want their EQs or even boosts to be after. And a lot of guys will put a boost in the effects loop of their amps for the same reason. If they run a boost to the front end, it's going to create more harmonic difference and saturation and gain. They don't want that. They just want it louder. So they'll put it in the effects loop because it's post.
Yeah, and this is not just a volume boost. It's like you showed me. It could be used as really a tone shaping thing.
Yeah, you can definitely sculpt it. Like I'm seeing the question. Is this pedal a dual overdrive? No, it's an overdrive on one side and a boost on the other.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool that you can just use it as a boost too, because I really dig that sound that we played through earlier with just the boost thing. Yeah, I really like that sound too. So that's awesome.
Yeah, a lot of the session guys, especially in Nashville, they'll use that just once again because they want to fit in a mix.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a workhorse, like time saver. If you're sitting there in front of your board, but the combo amp's in another room, it's like time is money. And the producer's saying, "Hey, can we get that to, that sounds great, but I want it to sound more like a Vox."
Yeah.
Well, all you have to do is reach down and turn the tilt EQ to the left. It brightens things up, or use the tight switch and cut lows, and snap. It's literally in the snap of your fingers, as opposed to, okay, now I got to get up, walk over to my Fender Deluxe, turn the lows down, turn the top end up, or whatever it ends up being. That was a big part of it. And yeah, a lot of the guys that use that pedal love it for that on sessions. I love it for that on sessions. That was like, workflow is everything. So that was another big part of the boost side of the pedal. Is like, man, I can fix this immediately.
Yeah. So I have one last question concerning the tightness switch here. So when I'm playing through it, like everything, I clearly hear a difference between all the tones. I really like the shaping thing here that you get with this. The tightness, I hear the difference, and we'll just talk about maybe full versus normal, because that's where I hear the most difference. Here's full, and then here's normal. If I play enough time on, say, the normal, just on my own, no backing track, no recording, I get used to it. I like it. I like that sound. But then I switch to the full. Well, I like it too. How do you decide which is which? Is this more of recording with other instruments, and you will do that tightness, or maybe it's just that my ear is not educated enough, or I don't know. I'm having a hard time with the tightness.
Yeah, no, your ear is, you're hearing what you're hearing. The main thing with, we call it a tight switch, but really what it's doing is it's just cutting low end. It's shelving low end. It's shelving, at a set frequency. It's cutting a certain amount more if it's in the full setting. So full doesn't mean full sound. Full means
right.
Full
yeah. And you see
and then half. Yeah, so you can see it in the nomenclature, but what you're hearing is exactly it, because when you're playing a solo tone, it sounds really rich and fat if you leave it in the normal mode. But sometimes that's not going to cut through in the mix. That's taking up too much room. There's too much sonic information there, because you got a bass player or somebody playing a Hammond B3, and you got to sit. So instead of changing your whole tone stack to fix it, you can just reach over and hit the full. And what it's going to do is it's going to bring out some mids as it cuts the lows, and it'll just fit better.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you're playing rhythm tracks and it's just taking up too much room, it's kind of the same thing. It just depends on how you have it dialed. Like, obviously, when you were kind of jostling the pedal around, you've got the treble like turned way down now. But that's still fine. That's the whole point. It's like, I tell people too, it's like, don't dial with your eyeballs. Use your ears, what feels good. And go that route. And with that tight switch, one thing I will say is it will present slightly differently depending on where that tilt EQ is set. But as a rule, it's cutting lows. That's why it's there.
That makes sense. Yeah. So I could see it very useful when you're playing with other instruments and all that, and even solo. I can tell. Now the half is just kind of a same, like just another option that's kind of in the middle.
Yeah, it's just a more subtle option. That's the only reason I did that is I know players, and I'm kind of one of those players too, that were like, man, I just want that 10%. I don't want the 20. It's the 10, which is really subtle, but for a lot of players, they're super in tune with certain things. So, that's part of their workflow, and that's why I ended up doing it as a 3-way as opposed to just a full cut.
Yeah, that's great. One last question, which is kind of unrelated to the tilt, but sag. Talking about sag in an amp, I think I know what it means, but I'm not quite sure. Can you tell me?
Yeah, well, it's really not, I guess it's not subjective. Okay, so when you think of compression is something that you can set, right? You can set a threshold. You can set how much it compresses,
Yeah.
how long it stays compressed before it lets go, all that. So that's compression. Sag, to a degree, feels like compression, but sag is really what the amp's transformer is doing. So it feels like compression, but you would never call it that. Amp sag and compression are two completely different animals. Generally, like if you plug into well, even the D20 is a good example of that. It has a certain amount of transformer sag. Like if you really dig into it, it's going to kind of sag down under that voltage. Especially 20, like lower watt amps will especially do that. But even like a great 50 watt short box Marshall will have a certain amount of sag. Vox AC30s have, especially the vintage ones, have a killer sag to them. It's a compression. You can call it compression, but it's really more how the transformer is reacting to the current it's being hit with. If you really turn it up, it's going to sag a little bit more, but it's not compression. It's a feel thing, and it's addictive.
Is it? Yeah. Okay.
Whereas, and that being said, like a Dumble, Dumbles are very unforgiving. They don't have a lot of sag. They're pretty stiff and like, man, whatever goes in is going to come blaring back out at you. Whereas like a Fender Deluxe is going to have some sag to it, some natural, I guess you could call it natural compression.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think for a lot of guys, me included, with, let's say the fractal, that's my main thing, just plug in. There's so many options, but it's sometimes difficult to experiment, like sitting in front of a real amp and then having maybe 5 amps in front of you that have really different qualities and different sag and all that. And so that's why I'm asking these questions. I'm just kind of coming out because I'm tired of pretending I know what I'm talking about when I really don't, because I haven't had the chance to experiment that with those things very much with the line of work that I'm doing. So
no, it's I think you know more than you let on. It's just for you, it's like what you're hearing. It's just the terminology.
Yeah,
but like even when I was touring with Carrie, the Storyteller tour, we used fractals.
Okay.
And obviously you have, we were forced to. It's not that I don't like fractals, but I would have preferred to just use tube amps. But because things went up and down and turned and spun and blew up and all that stuff, you can't have pedal boards on stage. Everything's automated. Fractals have to change with production. But that being said, I used 2 amps. I used a divided by 13 model, the FTR 37, and I used a BEOD model. And that was it. Those were the 2 amps, because for me, it was just way, way too many options. And for me to narrow it down, it's like, okay, well, I know these 2 amps really well. I know these 2 amps will fit from really pretty clean all the way over to high gain, and I'm done. And I used 1 cabinet, because it's a myriad of possibilities in a fractal. And for me, it's like, and there were certain things that kind of where I was like, that's not exactly like my D13 the way it feels, but it was good. It was good. And the fractal does capture the same thing. It's like what you were talking about. They, in the code found out a way to have that sag, that feel be there, depending on what amp you're using.
That's cool. I learned a lot. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, this was fun, man.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again, and maybe next time we'll be together in the same room and just play some notes. That'll be fun.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Shawn, what do you have going on these days? Anything you're doing special or anything new?
I'm pretty much in demo land right now. I just finished up Sinvertech. I've got a Cornerstone pedal sitting on the desk blinking at me, telling me to get to work. And just little sessions here and there. But yeah, for the most part, at least right now I'm in demo land.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time. Enjoy. Have a good rest of your demo with your pedal.
Yeah, thank you, David. Appreciate it, man.
For those of you who are watching the replay, you should check out this video. I don't know what it is. It's really good though. And thanks a lot, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.